Okay, Darcy here again with another thrilling tutorial for flexible digital urban modeling. In this tutorial, you can see I've set up some delegates in a plane in the crowd object, and what I've done, I'll show you quickly, is assigned a simple surface follow and a wander to a team of all the 5 delegates that you can see here. I've already solved it because I'm a nice type of guy. And you can see what happens. Pretty much that. You saw one jump. Sometimes when you do the surface follow, we like to jump, like I did there, and change from corner to corner. That's the ghost in the machine doing its thing. But in this tutorial, I wanted to go through setting up some cameras. Cameras are really cool because you can choose what sort of views you want, and it's really good for rendering. But sort of thinking outside the box, and if we're dealing with motion, try and set up some dynamic cameras that move as our delegates move. A lot of great directors put a lot of time in the cinematography. Martin Scorsese, that type of stuff. So see, we get some Scorsese angles happening. So usually sort of if you had a scene or something, you would sort of have a little look around, see what you'd like to do. Because I'm on Max on my laptop, and for some reason I can't really pan and orbit as well as I usually do. So it'll be a little bit potato-ish, but we'll jump into it nonetheless. So to create a camera, you go up to your little create panel, click on the one that looks like a camera, and we're clicking on our target camera. So we'll just dump that in anyway. So you click to place your camera. Now the other thing about the camera is it has a target. Target is basically what it looks at. So let's just pop it right here for now. So we've got our camera and our target going. We're going to press Alt and W to get back to our 4 views. Now what is really cool is we can go change it. I like to change the left view from being left to our camera. As simple as that to make you be able to see it a little bit better. We'll go shaded. So now you can see, let's just do this. So the camera is kind of looking in that direction. It sees the delegate, but it's not really showing much of the scene. Now to do that, let's just say we click on the camera. We really want to move the camera up. We go whoop. Well, we can see our delegate now. We can't see much of the scene. So we can change that by moving our target. And there we go. Look at that. Isn't that wonderful? Now, what we can do is, we back at the start of our animation, click play, and there we go. From the camera. Now, that's all very well and true. You could render that out now and you'd be done. But that little animation there. But we want the camera to move also. Going back into the perspective view now. So we can do that in a number of ways. To start off with, let's just look at moving the camera along a simple track. To do this, we're going to go to our top view. I like to put on shaded to see what's going on. We can see our camera there. Okay, so now we've got to tell the camera where it wants to move. So we're going to create a line. In this case, let's get a little bit fancy, and an arc, because arcs are pretty cool, and then nice fluid motion. So it's going to move from there, and it's going to move to about here in the end, and it's going to travel in this direction. Now let's quickly go back into perspective. So currently, the arc is sort of like that. It's not really at the height of the camera. Why don't we change that slightly? So we go into click on the arc, go to the modifier list, and we're going to go to our edit spline, turn on the vertices, and I don't know, we'll try and make it a little bit artistic. To do that, there we go. Move that up a little bit, and then we'll deselect we'll just select these two and do the same for that, and do that. Let's just finish that off. Now what I'd like to do now is I'm going to right click on here, get those coordinates. I know there's probably a better way of doing this, but for all intents and purposes, we go 209.259, negative 310.841, and 119.786. So now we're going to move our camera to this exact endpoint. Why? So that when the camera starts to move, it's a more fluid motion, it doesn't jump anywhere. Now, I'm sure there's a faster way to do this, a more smart way, but I'm fairly new to animation, so we're going to do it the old-fashioned way. And there we are. So now our camera starts there, and if we click orbit here, it's going to move in this little fancy looking line all the way down to the bottom. Maybe not the bottom. We'll just don't want it to look too potato-ish, so we'll do that. And there we have it. Now, important thing to note is the camera is going to move, but the target is going to stay in the same place. So it's just sort of going to pan around, essentially. So now we've got to go from having a line with spline and a camera to connecting them together. So to do that, first of all, we're going to click in a hierarchy tab, make sure pivot selected and affect pivot point or pivot only. And then we're going to go center to object, click on our motion tab, and I think we're going to go assign controller. And we're going to click on the position and assign controller. And because we get what's going to control the movement of this camera is the line. It's going to move from one end to the other. Path constraint, our line. We click X, we'll bring that roll up back up, and then we go down here to add path, and we click our little line. There we are, and you can see the camera has just jumped to there. That's because we're 35 frames in. So, now we've been bamboozled. This is because it'll start at the starting point of the spline. So I drew the starting point here and finished it off there. So it'll start there and end there. It doesn't really matter. In the end, you can flip the direction pretty easily, but we'll just keep it the same because, you know, on the film set, time is money. And I don't have a lot of time left, so this is what we're going to do. And we're pretty on track to get some animations happening. One thing I'd like to touch on and say is I would like the camera to start moving hardline, a quarter of the way through. Just, set the scene first. So down the bottom in our animation tab, you can see that we go from 0 to 200 frames, and these little flags appear. So that's when the camera starts to move, and it gradually moves along there and stops there. So we want it to start moving about here. So if we just sort of do it in our head, nothing's happening. And cinematography is happening. There we are, look at that. Now, I'll just show you again. And there it goes. Isn't that wonderful? Now, come back. The action, we're right in there. And boom, we're off. Look at that. Look at that. Now that'll be it for this tutorial, I think. I might come back and do some more camera stuff after the break. Go out, get yourself a cuppa, and stay safe.